My work at the Disabled Students Program for UC Berkeley involves helping students with disabilities that are working on getting their bachelor's and even their master's going forward. I started working at the Disabled Students Program back in 2019, and I started as a assistant for preparing documents where basically my job, I was trained to use this thing called optical character recognition, which is software that allows us to take books and images of pages that are not very accessible in terms of being able to, say, highlight text or read it with a screen reader. And we would use the OCR software to make it readable for screen readers, making it easier for students to use in their studies. And also we offered a text-to-speech software that I was trained to use in preparing documents inside, such as Kurzweil 3000. That's one that we used back when I started. And we've been moving on to other things, to more popular apps such as Speechify and Natural Reader.
Oh, wow. I'm a fan of Speechify. That's cool that it's like used within the school, in the university.
Oh,
What was the other one? Speechify and what?
Natural Reader, it's one I discovered a few years back. It's kind of like Kurzweil, and where it's like it allows you to upload books and it would use text-to-speech to read the text out loud, so you can like read it and hear it at the same time, so
I
to
love
speak.
that. Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of your main focus of work at UC Berkeley, and I assume that your department is working with like physical disabilities as well as like the invisible disabilities. Like we could talk about both these cases. Is that?
Oh, yeah, of course, I'm perfectly fine with that. So, like for physical disabilities, we have had a few students come into us for help who were, say, blind or had to use a wheelchair to navigate across campus. I remember in one of my more recent students that I had to assist about a few months ago, they were not only using a wheelchair, but had to use a device to create text for them to read out loud because they couldn't physically speak, and so used a device to say be spoken for them by typing words into it.
Oh wow, okay. I have so many questions popping up already. Do you want to talk about your design work as well?
Oh, yeah, sure, of course. So I did study film and animation when I was attending UC Davis back in where I graduated in 2016. I was a transfer student, and I was really into wanting to work in media, film, or something like that. And then after graduating, I did several different odd jobs for contract work over the years, including Apple and PG&E. And then when I landed my first real full-time job with UC Berkeley, I spent some time learning the ropes of trying to learn about the software for helping students with disabilities such as OCR, note-taking, and some other things. And I was getting pretty good at my role, but I still wanted to do more and thought that there were other ways I could help more people besides within my role. And so then I got really interested in user experience design, and I took a 6-month boot camp through UC Berkeley Extension, which Extension is a program that allows the students, staff, and other individuals to take extended classes that aren't really for bachelor's or graduates, but really you get like certificates from taking these courses. So I took a 6-month boot camp learning about user experience design and ended up learning how to create like prototypes for websites and applications, specifically using this one app called Figma. Not sure if you've heard of it. It's like one of the premier softwares for user experience designers, where it allows you to create like prototypes and layouts for apps and websites. You can really make almost anything you want, really. Actually, that was pretty interesting. And I thought that learning things such as this would allow me to maybe learn how to create more accessible products, such as applications or sites for other departments, and thought that maybe it would help with the DSP a bit as well, and help design our website and make things clearer, more accessible. And I know that we had a lot of broken links on our website too, also. So that was something to look into.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like there's a lot to dive into there. What did you think about the Neurodiversity Summit? That's where we met.
Yeah, I thought it was a really, really great and wholesome event that day. Actually, it was great to see that there were so many advocates and specialists coming to discuss the challenges of disability and also the strengths as well. And some of the panels that I attended really spoke out to me, not only telling me things that seem familiar to some topics I've heard before, but also maybe shedding light on things I didn't think about, like their thoughts about remote work. For example, I heard one panelist discussed how that's better to build a foundation with people you work with in person, and even if you have to work remotely with them later, at least you've met them first. But if you met them first remotely, then it doesn't exactly bridge any gaps, and I can understand how that would be somewhat of a challenge for those on the spectrum and the workforce as well.
Yeah, I could see that. I worked at a company remotely for a period of time where it was a couple months before I met any of the people in person. And yeah, it was just a really interesting experience. Like my boss at that time, I didn't realize he had like a very kind of dry sense of humor because it didn't come off in video the way it came off when other people were around. So one of the things that kind of related on that when you had introduced yourself and you said UC Berkeley, probably just being a Bay Area resident, when I think about going to like Berkeley or I guess any university that's in like a large city, to me it always feels a little bit overwhelming, because I imagine large campuses. And yeah, even for me, like as a neurodiverse and just a person when I'm going to a new location, just trying to like know how much struggles I'm going to have, like finding what I need, even if the maps, but even if I'm using like map location, it's not always accurate. It's, sometimes delayed. And on certain campuses, like the Stanford campus that we were at, even with like maps, it's really hard like to navigate the campus because a lot of the buildings look the same. So I've always gotten lost on the Stanford campus. I don't really remember what the Berkeley campus looks like. It's been such a long time since I've been there. But yeah, I guess for folks that aren't familiar with UC Berkeley, how would you just describe it compared to?
Right. Well, compared to Stanford, there's a lot less red-colored buildings on Berkeley's campus, obviously. I mean, I know that they're kind of rival schools. But yeah, I mean, like Berkeley, like I've always seen as a somewhat like kind of townish school with a lot of like nature like areas. I mean, they've got like some good places to walk. And even compared to Davis, like where I attended for my bachelor's, remember Davis was mainly an art agriculture school. So we had lots of farms, silos, and they even had like one class building there called the Death Star. Actually, a fun fact there. I never got to take any classes there, but it was a nice building to look at anyway. And right, and Stanford, it looked like a really beautiful campus there as well. Like I thought it looked very clean and had some really great looking architecture as well. And I didn't get to see too many of the buildings when I was there for the summit, but I did think that the building where the Stanford summit took place, that it was, yeah, really well designed to be inside, and had some good floors and rooms for all the panels, especially too.
Yeah, that campus building was the building where we were meeting. It was luckily not one of the red buildings, so it was one that I could just, at least when I walked inside, like, oh, now it's more distinct than the rest. Remember where to go. Gosh, I anticipate working for like this, given that you work for the disabled students program, for somebody who has like a known disability before they're entering college, even before they're undergrad. I imagine that your department probably has people contacting early to just to even decide if the school is like a feasible option and what type of support they get. Is that accurate? Is that, because I guess I don't know, like how much is disability support a factor in somebody's decision to join the school, or do most people just kind of assume like, well, if they don't have something available for me, we will have to figure it out?
Oh, well, I mean, so far in the time I've spent at Berkeley, we have accepted so many students with various different disabilities, both as invisible ones or even physical, not just. So, like, we helped a lot of students that have cases such as ADHD, dyslexia, autism, even those who are blind as well. And we don't really have exactly any real restrictions for students that come to us for support. Basically, as long as they get their accommodation from a specialist, one of them within our department and of course their professor. Then from there, I think the real challenge for them was just wanting to make sure that they're going to have the actual tools that they need available. I remember in some of my most recent students I've been helping, they've been one of the more common questions that I was getting was asking if they'd be allowed to use a laptop during class, saying that sometimes professors don't allow that. But then I check in with my superiors at work and then getting back to the students, letting them know as long as they have permission from both their professor and if met with the specialist, then they should have no problem as long as they're accommodated. So really, it's kind of like getting a doctor's referral. Once you have that, you're pretty much all set to use whatever type of additional support you are really requiring.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really wonderful. You'd mentioned ADHD, dyslexia, autism. I'm curious, like, we don't need exact numbers, but just kind of being there and living there. What do you think is like the more popular needs? Is it for the invisible disabilities or for more like physical disabilities?
I would say probably more invisible. I know that there's probably lots of students that aren't exactly comfortable with disclosing their disability, but others that are. And pretty much we have been getting like quite a lot of students, especially this year, requesting more of our services. They come to the office to speak with the specialist, and they schedule appointments with our note-taking department that I'm currently working in, as well as others like alternative media that's been helping with the Speechify and other similar apps. So really, they have lots of different cases, whether sometimes they need help with both note-taking and having their books prepared to being read on screen readers or text-to-speech apps, and other times they just want to make sure that they have additional time for exams or in secluded spaces, things like that.
Yeah, and you're calling out something really important, which is first, there's how comfortable is a student with sharing their disability, even with the department that can, that can help them. And then this nuance of how comfortable are they like seeking support, even with tools. And, from my experience with like largely with ADHD communities, but also, there's folks that have autism and dyslexia in a lot of the communities that I'm in and interviews that I've done. Sometimes it can be like worrisome or limiting to ask for support, because so many of us have had bad experiences when we have asked for support. And so, it kind of becomes like this barrier that we need to like remind ourselves that getting support is more than okay. So I guess, does your department have to do a lot of like kind of, I don't know if it's like educating or reminding that like, hey, the support is here for you and it's okay to use? Like, do you have to like work on, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I don't want to say like controlling, but I guess just like supporting people early that their needs are okay and that you have a great department that can meet them. Is that like a part of the department's work to like go out and have to do like this outbound, I guess it's kind of like education and reminders?
Yeah, I would say we do. I mean, we list a lot of different rules and regulations on our website, of course, to let students and other visitors of the website know exactly what it is they're entitled to and what kind of accommodations they should be seeking out if they need any. And sorry, could you maybe expand on part of the question just a bit?
Yeah, I guess how much, gosh, okay, so I had this assumption in my head, and maybe it's not valid, but from what I've understood with like more and more of the younger generation is like because of social media, even talking about ADHD and dyslexia and autism has been more normalized than in years past. Though I think many folks probably still struggle with being like, yes, I have it, but like maybe being hesitant to taking on support. I think whether it's because of a neurodiversity, or I know even when I go to like a basic yoga class and they say grab and block if you need support, it's like we're almost wired to think that support is like a weakness of ours, or reaching for support is because of a lack in ourselves. And I'm curious, like, yeah, I'm just, I guess, curious of the mindsets that you get exposed to, if people come to your department with hesitancy and almost like embarrassment for needing support.
Right. To answer that, I haven't exactly seen really any hesitancy from students that have been coming to us for support. Really, they've been, when I have meetings with them for note-taking services, they usually ask me that they've been looking for support and seem really open about what it is that they're struggling with. Like whenever how my meetings usually work on a day-to-day basis. I mean, in the note-taking department, I actually transferred from a past team in alternative media actually, and I can get more back into that later actually. So how it works in the note-taking job for me right now is I usually meet with students over Zoom or in person to discuss what it is that they're really struggling with in terms of taking notes in class, and then they would tell me a little bit of their story as much as they're comfortable with telling, and usually they tell me quite a lot. Like things that probably most common I hear is that they have trouble concentrating, remembering the lectures, that even if they take a lot of notes, they think that there's still some information that they missed. And then after listening to what it is that their issues are, then I recommend one of our three note-taking applications of which one is the best that suits the most for them. And then if they're open, if they're interested, then I show them a short demo of the app to see like how it would help with their note-taking in a real life setting, either in person or over Zoom, because they can do remote sessions as well. And then like I make sure that it has like the exact tools that they need to actually do what it is that they're aiming for in class. And then if they're like, I'd like to use this app, and that'll be great, I'll set up a free license for you today. Keep an eye on your inbox. So yeah, that's basically how that goes. So I think to really summarize that, I think it's like I try to find out what it is that they've been struggling with to see what is they're really up for talking about, and then just seeing how to proceed with making sure that they're going to get the right support they need.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's so wonderful. And note taking, especially with like the AI, like meeting recordings and stuff, has become so common these days. I'm curious, like with the apps that UC Berkeley works with and specifically recommends, are there like capabilities that are just far more advanced than like what we might be using here on Google Meet, or what you find with these like note takers like Read AI or Fireflies? Like, I
Oh,
guess how do the apps differ?
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So the three ones that we use, first one we use is Otter AI, which not sure if you've heard of that one, but it's mainly like a web-based app that allows you to record an entire meeting, and then it would create a transcription for you, and has a few tiny features such as highlighting parts of the transcription or adding annotations to it, and even emojis also just for fun mainly. And so otherwise, oh yeah, and it has cool features where it can actually integrate into apps such as Zoom and Slack and other apps. So that way, if you started a Zoom meeting, you could have Otter automatically join with you. So you didn't have to have it open, things like that. And so the second one, we have one called Messenger Pigeon, where basically it works as mainly a recorder, where all it would do is just record an entire session for you. And there's a part where you can add notes to it. And when you're done recording it, you would send it to a live note taker who would create the transcription for you. But usually that would take a few days compared to Otter, actually. So, and plus it's been going through a few like bugs in the past few months, actually. So it's not really the one I recommend the most, because it's been doing this strange thing where I was trying to show students how to organize their recordings into folders to make it more organized, but it does this thing where you click on the folder and it won't show the recordings. I mean, like seriously, like you would definitely want to see a folder and see what you save them
Yeah.
into, right? Oh yeah, and so then the last one, the one I usually recommend the most, called Genio, which was formerly called Glean. It was like the word clean, but with the letter G instead of C. And yeah, it got updated with a new name to Genio a few months ago, and it's been having all these features where it allows you to not just record lectures, but even take notes at the same time. And you can also upload lecture slides to show up while the recording's going. So I thought that would be a cool way for students to basically look at the lectures on their computer, tablet, or phone
Yes.
while taking notes and recording it. And has a lot of other features like live captioning and also allowing you to add AI created or actual images created by photographers, and also has some other features such as, let's see, I actually got open actually because I was having another meeting earlier today getting ready to show this to a student, where basically in addition you have other things such as a drawing app where you could draw things for your notes. And usually I recommend this as a good way to have an XY chart for makeshift ones for a lot of math and science classes. And
You're very visual. That must be amazing.
I mean, I thought so, and I think like to think a lot of students think that is amazing or useful as well. And also, additionally, like it has this other cool feature where it takes everything you recorded or transcribed and can create AI generated quizzes out of it, like questions and answers. So basically, it takes everything that was recorded and makes questions and answers based on what was talked about. And I always try to think that this is the real kicker that makes students want to use it when I explain it to them, because I tell them usually that if they were recording like an entire lecture, since they're recording the professor, that usually they make their exams based off what was said more so in the class, more so than in textbooks. And as a former college student myself, I remember that was my experience. Like I would read it and take notes of the textbooks as much as possible and of any notes in class. And I remember the exam questions I had were based more so off what was class, and sometimes there were lots of notes that I was taking and there was the possibility of me missing things. But what made especially Genio useful, I think, is since it was recording everything, that if there was anything missed, then they could just re-listen to the audio and try to pick on some more notes that they could add in addition to their information.
Oh gosh, that's amazing. I mean, just the fact that it's in one app, because I think about, just, I mean, like with my kids, even today, they're like, you have to like then figure out how to make the flashcards, and they do the electronic, flashcards, like I don't know, it's like Quizlet or something, but that takes extra time. So the fact that like you have the one app that takes it from the lecture notes and then helps you actually like now integrate it and study it is amazing. That must be just a huge time savings for especially college students. And yeah, I'm about to go on a tangent, so I'm going to hold my second thought for a second part. But actually, I'll say it now because one of the interesting things that research shows is, especially, I know this is true for ADHD, and I don't actually know if it applies for like the other use cases you talk about, like dyslexia and autism, but with like ADHD research, usually when students are in high school, they've like built this like support structure around how they go to class and take notes, and it works for like an environment. And then I would say, because I know going from high school to college was a huge struggle for me, and I was undiagnosed. So now it makes sense. But back then, I just couldn't understand why I was struggling so much from other people. But, one of the reasons is because there's so much changes in those environments, and maybe what you were depending on in your high school years for class taking notes, as well as like out of class studying, just needs to be adapted for this new environment. And that often gets missed, so I think that when people are going through these life changes, in big settings, and especially things like high school to university, where the teaching styles like vary, right? The expectations of you vary. It seems to me like there's this huge like then lift needed to now establish a new support structure. So like I just find that fascinating, that like it really seems to me like your department blocks off time to like actually do the research and to figure out not only like what are the most popular tools that are being out there, but what are the best for students given the environment that they're in, which must be hard, like, because especially I imagine working in the note-taking department, because there's new tools like coming out all the time. I guess, like, is it overwhelming, or how do you end up staying up to date with the tools to recommend, given especially now with AI, things are changing so fast?
Oh, all right. Well, our university is partnered with the other companies that own Genio, Otter AI, and the others.
Okay.
And we're always like looking into just staying up to date with new technologies by maybe using LinkedIn for social media to see what other types of technologies are being developed, or even researching other articles online saying like what are the best note-taking apps out there, and trying to find out if there's something else that could be a better fit by chance. And let's see, I remember back when I was at the Neurodiversity Summit, I ran into this one group that used this one other note-taking software. Oh, sorry, hold on just one second. Right, this one panel that was showing this other note-taking software. It was called Peak. Not sure if you ran into them. They had it was mainly a purple logo with a sort of pencil scribble thing. They actually gave me like one of these free spinner things, actually, with their logo on it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
that's
know.
actually, I should grab my fidget spinner.
Yeah, yeah, I'm too. Yeah, I know most of the folks I work with can't really stand them, but I mean, like, it's not to say anything bad or anything, not like that. But I mean, yeah, it's just like it was cool just seeing that there was this other group there that was also using AI, taking software. I mean, like, personally, my department is mainly trying to use more software that's aimed that they have tools that aren't really using AI too much, and more manual ones where the students are actually putting in the work to make sure they're putting in down the notes that they need actually.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like, I think there are still some ways like maybe AI could be applied as more of an assistant and less of an actual note replacement by chance. I know that some professors that I've worked with are really weary about them, so I do my best to really just show not just professors but students the tools that Genio and the others can use to be something that's not going to do the work for the students, but really just give them that real leverage that they need to make sure that they're actually having a real chance to succeed in classes like any other student would, disability or no.
Right. That's such a big topic these days. Like I know in my kids' schools, it's like you will not use AI for your work, which I think for their age group it does make sense, but it can also be limiting because then it's like, I mean, there's so much of understanding AI and playing with it and using it and seeing how you can use it to like increase your efficiency and to learn better. So it can also be restrictive if it's like blocked from the classroom. Are you able to like just give any insight of, I guess, what the conversations are like these days around that? Like, yeah, I guess how much are the classrooms like against using AI for support in the schoolwork versus, really encouraging students to use it? I feel like the best case is like you figure out how to use it so it, like I think you just said in some different words earlier, like enhance your ability to learn, right, and not replace it. So
Oh,
yeah, I'd love to hear what the conversations are like at the university these days.
Oh, sure. I mean, I can't really speak too much from personal experience, really. Mainly the most conversations I've been hearing are mainly from some of my supervisors telling me not to really sell off too much of the AI features from Genio, because it does have this one thing of an outline feature that takes the transcription, makes it a summary of it, which isn't too much of a hand holder, really. I think like some students I've done it with actually find it really helpful, and they're still using the other main tools, but have getting like some maybe reports that like some students have professors that aren't really interested in AI tools and are really just trying to make sure that students are really putting in the work to actually be there as students and not just be there with an actual tool, just really taking all the AI
Yeah.
for them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're delegates to be like capture the notes and then they're not actually like processing and learning anything. Gosh, that, I know I told you earlier in this call that the note-taking capabilities are really important to me. And as we're talking about them, I'm just reflecting on a, a really tough chapter in my life where I had I'd had a big family crisis. I mentioned to you, my father-in-law had had Lou Gehrig's disease. I was about to start a brand new job. My mother-in-law just got diagnosed with cancer. So then we had two ill in-laws that lived about 15 minutes away. So we were helping care for them. And I had two young kids. I had an almost 1-year-old and an almost 5-year-old. And I was starting this new job in this like peak crisis. And one of the things that I really struggled with was I would go to these meetings and people would be talking and I could not absorb the information in real time. It reminded me of when I was in college and I had gotten into a bike accident, and the next day I had a mild concussion, and I'd gone to class and the teacher was writing on the board. And I remember thinking, like, I know I should know what word is being written there, but I couldn't read, I could not process it. I left class and I went straight to the campus urgent care. But during this period of the new job, it was so embarrassing for me to not be capturing what people were saying in the meetings and not learning. And then it was also scary because I didn't quite know what was happening. I don't think really fully understood at the level of stress that my body was in, that my processing was being so affected. And I ended up basically whenever it was a meeting that I could record, I would record it. And at that time I wasn't using the note-taking services. So I did what I hope nobody ever has to do these days, given the capabilities, which is after work, I would, after putting my kids to bed, I would stay up at night. Makes me sad just thinking about it. And I would rewatch the recordings and then I would take notes, So then I was staying up from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. because it was just quiet around me. And then I could process the information. And then with the recordings, I could actually pause and then take notes. Oh, sorry, I didn't expect to get upset just remembering this. But it was a huge negative impact to my health, And I remember after that wasn't working, I did approach my management, and that time I'd shared a bit more about what was going on with work. And, my work supported me with a subscription to Otter AI. And that was so transformational. I still, because so I think in a work context, it can be different than a school context. I think in school context, we're okay, there's a test coming up. I need to know this information for a short amount of time and then put it on a paper to show I know it, but in a work context, you're no, I need to know it because I'm going to go into other meetings and talk about it. I have to, build things around it. I need to work with, I really need to process it. And at least with the note-taking app, because, I do think it can be hard to just have a transcript and process it in the same way. But one of the ways it really helped me is then I could, because it was integrated to, I forgot if it was integrated to my meeting notes or if I even just used it on the side. But then I would still rewatch the recording and I would have the transcript next to me, and it just helped me process it so much better. So I was still doing the horrible bad habit of staying up at night and kind of trying to get caught up with all the meetings that I was in a way that I could just process it since my system was calm and I could absorb the information better. But then it helped because then I had the notes, and the recording, and it became really easy for me to put things into action items and figure out who needs to do what. So it was a huge time savings, but I think one of the things that I feel grateful for that note-taking is so common now is, in that time it wasn't that common. So, and even meetings being recorded wasn't that common. So in order for me to have those capabilities, I would need to set up the meeting myself so I could hit record. Because sometimes when other people were setting up meetings, I would have to ask, can you record the meeting? And then people would be why? And I don't know. I mean, I think it was just because of my own experience. I felt shameful to be oh, I'm not able to process what you're saying now. Now I could still do it and be oh, it just helps me for offline processing. I went through saying it so many times that I got comfortable with playing with the words so it wasn't so embarrassing. But yeah, I just think in our day-to-day, we have these notes that are being taken, and we're oh, okay, this is helpful. I can save time, or at least I have it saved. But I think for my instance, when I was really struggling, and really wanted to process the information and to learn it and to know it, oh my gosh, it was invaluable, and it was I think that's the thing that even if somebody doesn't have a formal disability, because sometimes we just go through difficult life chapters, right? And it becomes it just becomes difficult to process. I was talking to somebody who's a student and a relatively new mom, and then it's like even just juggling all of that puts a lot on your plate and affects your ability to, like, I know for me, it's harder to read on screen, but easier to read on paper, or Speechify that you were mentioning, where it was hard to read. Oh my gosh, putting it into Speechify and then being able to listen to it like while walking was such a gift. And I love their product because they made it fun too. Like you can have Snoop Dogg reading to you, or like when it popped, it really made it fun.
Oh yeah, yeah, I did see those.
Yeah, so I really respect the work that you are doing, because just from my own lived experience, it really got me through. Like I think if I hadn't have had those tools, like one, I probably would have gotten fired, because I could not I couldn't process and learn. Yeah, so like it was a really necessary crutch for a period of time, so I think the tools can be invaluable. And I love like the level of detail that you're sharing with people, because even when you said with Otter, like the transcript has emojis, I was just thinking like, for my ADHD people, I'm like, oh, we probably love that because it's like something exciting versus looking at just text, and trying to read it. It like breaks it up a little bit,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess what are some of the feedback that you hear from like the students that are using these tools? Like, do you get the feedback, or are they kind of like, this works great, and then you don't hear back from them?
I think most of the feedback usually goes to the students' individual specialists and not so much me, although I do have one or a few students every once in a while when I get to, if they want to see a demo of one of the apps and I show it, then some students do seem really excited about, like, and comment that I did a good job, like showing them all the features and was clear and articulate, which I do hope that I am with the students, of course. So make sure that not only being professional, but showing them that what they're about to get a license for is actually something they're going to want to use. Because a little tricky thing about my job is that so far we've only been giving them one of our 3 licenses, one of the 3 softwares, because like we've been trying to make sure that we have enough licenses for everybody. So I mean if it were completely up to me, I would be like, yeah, I'll give you a license for all 3 of the softwares to use for your classes, but we want to make sure it's just like only one of the 3, so that way there's enough for future students. And because we really, Genio and the other companies give us only a limited number of licenses per semester, so we have to be careful about where we share them at times.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. As you were talking through that, I realized the work that you did with UC Berkeley Extension on understanding like design and the user experience, like how much that's feeding into supporting students, because like in supporting students in picking a good product for them, but also as you're talking through the features, I'm thinking about just a software product that I need to use for work. And I tried to do it yesterday, but I was so overwhelmed by the amount of videos that were on there and the content that was probably more advanced than I needed for, like, hey, just like day one, tell me how to learn this tool and get it set up. And so, yeah, I guess like I'd love to hear a little bit more about like how you've come to think about like design and user experience, especially when you're thinking about like these like accessibility use cases.
Oh yes, I'm glad you asked that. So when I first got into user experience, I thought that it applied to my current role in the DSP, because what I discovered that user experience was not just about like developing apps or websites, but really it was mainly about solving problems, but building a product around the idea of solving a problem. Say like one problem could be, say, like finding the nearest subway, or trying to find the best place to eat when you travel, and making sure that whatever method someone is going to use to solve that problem, it's going to be clear, accessible, and it's not going to be something that's too confusing for someone, especially with low vision or trouble seeing, to basically navigate that product. And When I first learned about user experience, I thought that I was always curious about having a job in the tech industry. I was never really the best at coding or engineering, things like that, but I always loved like illustrating and drawing and even doing 3D animation too growing up. And I thought that when I could take on UX and maybe see how well I do in the class. And surprisingly, I thought I got some really good feedback from my professors and classmates, and even some asking me for help. And what really I thought how it connected back into my work with accessibility was that if I was like learning how to like make products and making them very accessible, then when I was having to use note-taking apps or other similar methods to explain to students, then I could apply the ways of UX into my current work to find new abilities in how to explain different things to students. So that way, if I'm showing them a new app or website, then I'm going to be able to explain it in a way that they'll understand and even show how it would apply to different people of various backgrounds, regardless of their disability.
Yeah. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I guess whether it's a disability or not, you said it perfectly, like just understanding their background and yeah, like understanding their needs. So yeah, I'm wondering if you could give a few examples, because I imagine there's like cultural things, but then also if you're talking with somebody who has dyslexia versus somebody who has autism, you must obviously like adapt, like I imagine your whole approach of like what tool might work best and then how to share the features. I'd love to just get like a view of like that experience of, really understanding the person and then what that looks like from the first meeting to how that plays out and what you're recommending.
Oh, right. You mean like for my note-taking services, you mean?
Well, yeah, I guess I was thinking of it as just your skills because like I
Oh,
imagine the meeting is coming in the note-taking context, but because you also understand the view of like the user experience and the accessibility of the I'm sorry, I'm kind of assuming, but I'm assuming that because you've learned it, then when you're going through the products, you probably are like, oh, this is like got a clean UI. This is very intuitive versus this is not, I'd love to understand a little bit more of like a day in the life and kind of your thought process. But yeah, I guess I've just I think that what you said was so important of understanding the person, like regardless of the disability, there's broader things to understand. I'm almost thinking of it as like, whenever we think about like product development or design, we're like, understand the user and then the solution that best fits their needs, like how that works in the context and yeah, how design and the user experience like feeds into your ability to like support them.
Oh, sure, sure. I think I do have a few good examples. So when I was first learning UX in the boot camp that I took with UC Berkeley Extension, I remember one big part, basically an entire project that you make in UX is not just creating a prototype for a product, but mainly making a case study, basically a whole like a story about like how you're like assessing a problem, how you're coming up with a solution, and then building the app around that idea. And one huge part of the case study process that I thought applied into my work were the user interviews, where when I was taking the boot camp, one of our main assignments was they wanted us to seek out actual people and interview them on the product that we were thinking of making for. I remember when we were tasked with redesigning a DMV website, I was tasked with designing the Washington DMV website with another student. And so first off, they had us look at the whole DMV website and try to see what could be improved by it, because my professor actually said that most DMV websites don't exactly have the best user interface, and also issues of users basically getting lost in the process of signing up for their driver's license, things like that. So how we come up with good solutions is first we make some things such as, let's say, some boards of all the problems that we could identify with little sticky notes of issues saying that there should be better color contrast, or
Yeah.
maybe the user path the path to the driver's license isn't very clear. And then we would reach out to a bunch of individuals. I remember I reached out to a bunch of my old friends from college at UC Davis, asking if I could interview them for a few minutes and about their thoughts about the DMV website and get their feedback. And they would tell me their feedback, and I got a lot of different responses. Like they thought that it wasn't very clear to find the driver's license page, or that there could be a better navigation bar or something like that, or maybe there weren't enough differentiating colors or too many colors. So after taking these interviews, we basically apply all their thoughts and use those ideas to create the next prototype, the app or website version of the DMV site. So way with the basically the research would probably be the most important aspect in terms of getting the next steps of how we could say I could try to recreate a new site of my own idea without any research, but it would be a lot easier to get the right features that we should be aiming for by getting feedback. Because if this feedback was from these, say, 5 or 6 tests that I did, then they could most likely apply to several other individuals in the world who would see them as issues that they would like to see addressed. And same goes back to my note taking. If I ask the law students what is their biggest issues are with taking notes, and most of the time they tell us it's keeping up with the info in class, or thinking that they can't process information enough, then that means that just a handful of students could really be very similar to the majority of a much broader range of customers or individuals that we need to be accommodating to.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm curious if somebody, let's say, comes in and they have, start at color contrast, because you were talking about the DMV website and you were talking about the importance of color contrast. And then you mentioned it again. And the questions that popped in my head were okay, color contrast is probably important for just attention, getting and keeping somebody's attention. But then I also was oh, maybe for people with color blindness. And then I had heard with some disabilities, was it dyslexia, that certain colors are harder to see than others? I forget. Is there a feature like that you could call out where you're oh, it would have this impact on somebody with dyslexia, or this impact with somebody with blind, or maybe partial blindness, or how one feature could affect two different people of different backgrounds differently?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that color contrast would especially be helpful for those with nearsighted or even dyslexic, because there have been several websites I've seen in my time where maybe they pick the wrong colors for the text or the background. And if the user can't really see what they're reading, then a lot of other individuals are probably not going to be able to see the site very well, and then they'll likely lose interest and maybe just look for another site to see if it has the same features or help that they're looking for. And so whenever I'm trying to redesign new products or make new ones, or even branding such as the tree, I remember back at Stanford, they said make sure that the color contrast is going to match the red background, because when I was creating the brand, that they told us it had to be this color red for background. So when going forward into the logo, I wanted to make sure whatever colors I was going to pick, and there were quite a few, I made into it. Whatever was going to be on, especially the edges, it was going to be visible for a lot of people to see, basically.
Oh, okay. That's very cool. Yeah, my first job that I had out of college, I remember I was sitting with one of my bosses at that time, and we were going through something on a graph. And I was okay, so then this red line here, and he was which one? And they kept saying, and then he said, I'm red. He was red, green, colorblind. And I just remember I was oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And now I try to never use red in anything, and I don't know, I'll try to just do a bright orange, just remembering his experience. So yeah, to me, it's just it's so fascinating how different brains work. And my impression is with most sites and with most products, I feel most are they try to put so many features in, and it can be very overwhelming. And I have this hypothesis that if you took a bunch of neurodivergent people and tested it with them, you could probably come up with a really good, simple, but efficient user experience,
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I don't know, how do you think about Again, I'm curious of your perspective on like, where's that popped into your head?
Oh, you mean trying to design for neurodivergent individuals, you mean?
Yeah, I just feel like, well, I feel like if you designed, there's so many things that if you designed it for neurodiverse individuals first, like you actually are making it easier for everybody
Oh,
because
oh
of
yeah.
considerations.
Oh, yeah, right. That was when I was considering when I first started taking the UX boot camp. I was thinking that maybe I'd want to advance into trying to make products specifically targeted for individuals with neurodiversity, and but then as well as individuals who are neurotypical as well. So yeah, it's like you said, if we were making it neurodivergent first, then basically it would be creating like a whole market of customers that would be super satisfied with that product,
Yeah,
and likely maybe even have less complaints because we created it with basically someone in mind, making sure that they're going to have everything they need to move forward with accomplishing their task.
yeah, definitely. Oh gosh, definitely. There's a author, Peter Shinkman, and on his podcast and his books, he always talks about like, I mean, he has ADHD and he gives tools and tricks for that, but I think he always says like these really work for everybody,
Yeah.
It's like they'll still work. Like you don't have to have because it's all like efficiency and like in that context, like protecting your focus, right? Which applies to I would think all of us these days, especially with like I'm looking at my computer screen right now and I see like a browser open under behind the one that I have. I know I have like notifications popping up. So I feel like some of those tips and tricks can help absolutely anybody.
Oh, yes, yes, I agree.
I just, especially from your perspective of working with use cases in like a physical environment and like with your design perspective, like, the online environment, like, is there a couple things that you think are just like really important that isn't it like valued enough? Or is there things that you wish that you gained from this perspective that you wish that others would just consider in their work? Because whether they know it or not, like, as you said, everybody comes with different experiences, not just neurodiverse. And so, what have been some of your lessons learned that you wish would be implemented in more of the tools and like services and stuff that are around the world that are just not as common yet and you wish would become more common?
Hmm. Well, I think one thing I would like to see more of is maybe the quiz generator feature in Genio. I think if maybe more apps had that, then maybe they'd be more popular in that regards and even seen as helpful. That's one. And it's a really heavy question there. Actually, just there's so many features that could be implemented. Do you think you rephrased the question by chance?
Yeah, it is a heavy question. It's very broad. So give me a second. Maybe let me think through. Maybe if I rephrase it to thinking about like when you're working on like a new project from more of the UX design perspective, like are there core principles that you've learned about like accessibility and different needs?
Oh,
What I think the term is accessibility, but I think really just making things accessible for different needs, whether it's a formal like accessibility need or not. Like, are there some like key principles that that you value the most in terms of like either thinking through that experience or thinking about different users that you wish probably like other products would think about?
oh, yes, yes. I think that one big takeaway I would take is making sure that if it is a new product that's about to be released, that has at least an interface that's going to be easy to understand and clear for almost any user to use. For one, making sure that it has a clear, not just color contrast, but also easy to find buttons that are easy to see. I know that there are a lot of products I've seen out there where maybe the text or buttons are too small, or
Yeah.
maybe they're not using icons that individuals will recognize as something they want to use, something like that. So yeah, and maybe another key takeaway I think is maybe when product designers are making new products is maybe they take a sort of gamification approach where they try to like maybe introduce some kind of tutorial where it will feel like playing a video game for people. So because I know there are a lot of neurodiverse individuals or others that really enjoy those. I know I do myself. And so I just think maybe if it was something like that, it would create maybe some kind of tutorial, but maybe actually set the user off on their right path and feeling confident that they can move forward with this product that they have, and maybe not have to watch too many YouTube videos to understand every detail. So they'll
Yeah.
spend less time learning and more time actually doing a task.
Oh my gosh, so that's like such a great takeaway. Yeah, how do you make it easier for somebody to have less time learning and more time doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can tell you the software that I was talking about that I need to learn for a business thing, and I went to yesterday, at night, and I was like, oh, like I know I looked on it, and then I tried to Google give me the basic steps to do, the onboarding onto this. I don't know. I definitely had to block off time on my calendar just to learn the product, which is blocking me from actually using the product for what I need it for.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Relate to that. I feel like that's a really great, like a kind of a great principle. Less time, like how do you make it easier for your customers to have less time learning it and more time actually like using the value of a product?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I know we're wrapping up on time, and I've just like learned so much, and especially I think I want to look into the products that you said for my daughter, especially with the ability to make flashcards and like implement, because look, some of her needs and missing school, it's like we have to find options to make time more efficient in other ways. Yeah, I guess, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you just, want to use some of our last couple minutes to talk about?
Oh, sure. I mean, I did want to mention that before I made the logo, I did take quite a lot of other graphic design classes, like right after the UX boot camp. Because I was trying to learn more about accessibility, but thought that if I were to continue learning more about UX, I should take the graphic design route, because actually I never took too many design classes like before UX, but I was told through a student or professor that you need to learn graphic design to do good UX, especially if you wanted to make your own logos or images, things like that. And I thought that what I was learning in the graphic design was also applying back into my work as well, because we were learning not just about more fonts and colors, things like that, but also a few websites I discovered called these color accessibility websites, where you could take hex codes. And not sure if you're familiar with those, but it's like a 6-digit code of a color that you could apply into it to find out if the foreground and background is going to be acceptable. And that also applied into my current job, where I not only moved into note-taking services, but the DSP allowed me to, when they found out that when I told them that I was learning more about design and web design, that they decided to let me help redesign parts of the DSP website. And not only in searching for broken links, but I got to redesign a few pages to make them look a lot cleaner, and even have some more direct indicators of where the user is supposed to go for help, for things like that.
Oh, very cool.
Really,
You mentioned Figma in design, and I've used Figma. I'm not really great at visuals and design, but I have used it before when I've needed to. And I've seen a little bit about how advanced some of these design tools have gotten with AI. What's been your experience as you've been using it as new AI features come out? Are you enjoying it? Or are you kind of sticking more to, the tried and true?
personally, I've been trying to stick to the tried and true, just really try to come up with my own designs, through actually drawing them out, or just mapping in my head exactly what they should look like. And sure, I have encountered some AI tools in Photoshop and Illustrator, which are Adobe products, like these ones that create actual backgrounds based off the type of artworks I was making. Like this one project they were assigning me with making an advertisement using paintings by famous artists, and I was trying to make them fit products by making the backgrounds look a lot cleaner. So I had to expand them just a tiny bit, but that was pretty much as far as I went in terms of AI. And the rest, I was really just trying to learn the actual terms, like how to make gradients or how to crop and mask things, to really just to make them stand out. And especially if I was going to go into more freelancing on side of my current job to try to help more people, that I was actually going to know exactly how to help them and have the right skills and tools.
Oh, yeah. Very cool.
And I thought it would also help even apply to my current job as well, where if I learn more about how to create accessible art and things such as that, that I could really apply that into other future projects with the DSP. And they have asked me to help make a few flyers and designs for them a few times, and even some instruction guides that I've been working on recently, like I'm working on a new one for Messenger Pigeon actually to
Oh,
make it.
cool.
And plus, since the last guide, we have like some images from the last version, and it's been updated with new visuals. I've been trying to apply those new pictures of the new visuals as well. So that's a little bit of a challenge, but not really too bad.
Yeah. Well, I'm really impressed. It's a skill set that I don't have. And I can already see from talking with you that like from your passion behind it and the experience that you bring from like the like work you do in your day job and all the extra education that you've like taken on, and design and user experience, that you're like bringing tremendous amount of value to those you serve. So thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Dylan. I've like super enjoyed this conversation. I appreciate you taking the time and just sharing so much. Yeah, I feel like I'm still processing. So I know after this I'm going to be thinking a little bit about like the design of my own site, and gosh, definitely be trying out some of the tools that you've called out.
Oh yeah, of course. I'll be sure to like email you the links later if you like.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. Well, thank you so much, Dylan. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me today, Sharon. It was really nice talking to you too. Yeah, this was a really great conversation, I thought.